Welcome to Nexus Prime. The announcer's voice boomed across the crystalline arena, dripping with theatrical grandeur. Where legends are born and legends are buried. The crowd of 10,000 spectators erupted in thunderous applause, their alien forms creating a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds that would have driven a lesser species mad. But Chen just rolled her shoulders and cracked her knuckles, completely unbothered by the spectacle. She was late, fashionably late, some might say. While the other competitors had been preening and posturing for weeks, she'd been stuck in hyperspace traffic. Typical Tuesday, really. Our final contestant has arrived. The announcer's voice pitched higher with excitement. From the Sol system, representing the human species for the first time in Nexus Prime history, we have Chen. A smattering of polite applause followed. Maya couldn't help but snort. Even the announcer sounded like he was reading her name off a grocery list. She glanced around the holding area, where the other 9 competitors waited. Each one was a walking nightmare designed by Evolution's most sadistic committee. There was Vex'thor, a crystalline being whose body could shift between solid and liquid at will. His home planet had been conquered by sheer force of will and tactical brilliance. Next to him stood Grimjaw, a reptilian beast with teeth that could bite through starship hull plating. His species had turned warfare into an art form. But the one that caught Maya's attention was standing at the far end of the chamber. Zephyr, the Apex Warlord himself. This guy was legend incarnate. 7 feet of pure intimidation wrapped in biometallic armor that seemed to absorb light itself. His species, the Valdorians, had conquered 14 star systems in the past century alone. He personally led the charge that brought down the Martian defense grid, the same grid that had held off 3 different alien invasions. And here Maya was 5 feet 6 inches of what the galaxy apparently considered a primitive mammal, about to face him in single combat. Zephyr turned his head toward her, and Maya felt the weight of his gaze like a physical thing. His eyes were twin voids that seemed to pull light into them. When he spoke, his voice resonated through the chamber like distant thunder. So, the humans finally decided to play. Maya tilted her head and gave him her brightest smile. Well, you know what they say, better late than never. Though in your case, I'm thinking never would have been better. A ripple of shocked silence passed through the chamber. The other contestants exchanged glances that somehow managed to convey both amusement and terror. Nobody talked to the Apex Warlord like that. Nobody. Zephyr's laugh was like grinding metal. You have spirit, little mammal. I will enjoy breaking it. Ah, that's sweet, Maya said, batting her eyelashes. Most guys just want to buy me dinner first. The crystalline being Vex'thor made a sound that might have been laughter if crystals could laugh. The human has claws, after all. Claws. Maya looked down at her fingernails, then back up at the assembled warriors. Honey, these aren't claws. These are just Tuesday manicure tips. Before anyone could respond, the arena floor began to shift and change. The smooth crystal surface rippled like water, reforming into a complex battlefield complete with elevated platforms, energy barriers, and gravity wells that would challenge even the most experienced combatants. Contestants! The announcer's voice cut through the preparation noise. The Nexus Prime simulation will begin in 60 seconds. Remember, this is not a battle to the death. The simulation will end when one competitor achieves total tactical superiority over all others. Maya watched as the other competitors began their pre-battle rituals. Grimjaw was sharpening his claws on his own scales, creating sparks that illuminated his scarred hide. The Insectoid warrior, Clickbane, was testing his razor-sharp limbs with movements too fast for most eyes to follow. Others were checking weapons, adjusting armor, or entering meditative states that would enhance their combat abilities. Maya pulled out her phone and started scrolling through social media. Human! Zephyr's voice rumbled beside her. She looked up to find the Apex Warlord standing uncomfortably close. Are you not concerned about the upcoming battle? Oh, this thing? Maya waved dismissively at the arena. Nah, I'm good. Just checking if my pizza delivery guy left my order at the right apartment. You know how it is. Zephyr's biometallic armor shifted, adapting to what Maya could only assume was confusion. Pizza? Flatbread with cheese and toppings. It's a human thing. You probably wouldn't understand. She looked up at him with innocent eyes. Your species probably just absorbs nutrients through your skin or something equally boring. We consume the life essence of our enemies, Zephyr said, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. Maya blinked. Well, that's horrifying. Also explains why you guys never get invited to potluck dinners. The countdown reached 10 seconds. Maya finally put her phone away and stretched her arms above her head like she was preparing for a morning jog. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, begin. The arena erupted into chaos. Clickbane moved first, his Insectoid form a blur of deadly precision as he launched himself toward the nearest competitor. Vex'thor shifted into liquid form and flowed up one of the elevated platforms, seeking high ground. Grimjaw let out a roar that shattered several of the energy barriers and charged straight into the melee. Zephyr activated his armor's flight systems and took to the air, energy weapons materializing from his gauntlets as he sought targets below. And Maya? Maya stood exactly where she was, hands in her pockets, watching the carnage unfold with a sort of detached interest usually reserved for watching paint dry. The human appears to be waiting. The announcer sounded confused. This is highly irregular strategy. Within the first 30 seconds, 3 competitors had already been eliminated by the simulation's tactical superiority protocols. Their forms dissolved into sparkles of light as the arena's systems recognized their defeat and transported them to the observation deck. Maya yawned. Zephyr noticed her apparent inaction and dove toward her position, energy cannons charging with lethal intent. Face me, coward. Maya looked up at the approaching warlord and sighed. You know, I was really hoping this would take longer. I've got at least 20 minutes before my pizza arrives. The Apex Warlord's energy cannons fired, twin beams of concentrated destruction that could have leveled a city block. They struck Maya's position and exploded in a brilliant flash of light that temporarily blinded the spectators. When the light faded, there was nothing but a smoking crater where Maya had been standing. The human has been eliminated, the announcer declared. Apex Warlord Zephyr continues his dominance. But something was wrong. The simulation hadn't registered Maya's defeat. The tactical superiority protocols hadn't activated. That's when the laughter started. It began as a soft chuckle, echoing from somewhere in the arena. Then it grew louder, more confident, filled with the kind of amusement that came from watching someone fall for the oldest trick in the book. Up here, big guy. Every head in the arena turned upward. There, standing casually on the highest platform as if she'd been there the whole time, was Maya. She was juggling 3 small objects that glinted in the arena's lighting. Looking for these? She called down to Zephyr. The Apex Warlord looked down at his gauntlets. The energy cores that powered his weapons were gone. Somehow, impossibly, the human had removed them without him noticing. How? Zephyr demanded, his voice carrying across the arena. Maya grinned and tossed the cores into the air one final time before catching them. Trade secret. But if you're really curious, I'd suggest investing in better peripheral vision and maybe some anger management classes. The remaining competitors had stopped their battle to stare at the spectacle. Even they were beginning to understand that something unprecedented was happening. This is impossible. Vex'thor crystallized back into solid form, his voice ringing with disbelief. No organic being can move with such stealth. Oh, this is about stealth, Maya said, settling into a comfortable sitting position on the platform's edge, legs dangling over the side. This is about attention management. See, while you were all busy putting on your little light show, I was taking inventory. She gestured casually around the arena. Clickbane's primary neural cluster is located behind his third segment, making him vulnerable to sonic disruption. Grimjaw's scales have a consistent weak point along the dorsal ridge where they overlap. Vex'thor's crystalline matrix becomes brittle when exposed to specific frequency harmonics. Each competitor, she took an involuntary step backward. And you, she looked directly at Zephyr, your biometallic armor has a fascinating design flaw. It's completely dependent on those energy cores for structural integrity. Without them, you're basically wearing very expensive tinfoil. As if to demonstrate her point, Zephyr's armor began to flicker and fade, revealing the surprisingly vulnerable organic form beneath. The crowd had gone completely silent. Even the announcer seemed to have lost his voice. Maya stood up and brushed dust off her jeans. The thing about humans is we're really good at pattern recognition. We see things other species miss because we evolved on a planet that was constantly trying to kill us in creative ways. Every predator, every natural disaster, every environmental hazard taught us to observe, adapt, and survive. She began walking down the platform's ramp, moving with casual confidence toward the remaining competitors. But more than that, she continued, we learned something that apparently the rest of the galaxy missed. The most dangerous battles aren't won with strength or speed or fancy technology. Maya reached the arena floor and stood facing the assembled warriors. 5 of the original 10 remained, each one capable of single-handedly conquering lesser civilizations. They're one up here, she tapped her temple, before the first shot is ever fired. Zephyr, now stripped of his technological advantages, raised his clawed hands in a traditional combat stance. You think your clever words and parlor tricks make you superior? I have conquered star systems with these hands. Maya's expression shifted, and for the first time since entering the arena, something genuinely dangerous flickered in her eyes. And I buried civilizations with mine, she said softly. The temperature in the arena seemed to drop several degrees. Even the spectators in the stands felt it, an almost primal recognition that they were witnessing something far more significant than a simple competition. Maya took a step forward, and every instinct screamed to the remaining competitors to step back. But they were warriors, champions of their species. They held their ground. You want to know the real difference between humans and everyone else in this galaxy? Maya asked, her voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet arena. She smiled, and it was a kind of smile that had preceded the fall of empires. We don't just fight to win. We fight to make sure nobody else can fight again. Hashtag the Human Girl was last to join the simulation, then crushed the Apex Warlord with one move, HFY. The silence stretched for exactly 3 heartbeats. Then chaos erupted. Clickbane moved first, his razor-sharp limbs whirring through the air toward Maya's position. But she was already gone, sliding beneath his strike with fluid grace, while simultaneously pressing something against his third segment. The Insectoid warrior froze mid-attack, his entire nervous system overwhelmed by a small device that hummed at precisely the frequency Maya had mentioned earlier. One down, Maya said pleasantly, stepping around Clickbane's paralyzed form. Who's next? Grimjaw answered by charging forward with a roar that shook the arena's foundations. His massive claws swept toward Maya in an arc that would have bisected a hover tank. Maya didn't dodge. Instead, she reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out what looked like a simple metal tuning fork. She struck it against the arena floor. The pure tone that emerged seemed impossibly loud for such a small instrument. But more than that, it resonated at exactly the frequency needed to exploit the overlapping weak points in Grimjaw's dorsal scales. The massive reptilian warrior stumbled, his own armor-like hide betraying him as the resonance created microfractures that spread across his body. He collapsed to one knee, gasping in pain. 2 down, Maya said, tucking the tuning fork away. This is going faster than I expected. Maybe I should have ordered the pizza for earlier delivery. Vex'thor had been watching these exchanges with growing alarm. His crystalline form began shifting rapidly between states, trying to find a configuration that might resist whatever Maya had planned for him. Your sonic weapon will not work on me, human, he declared, his voice ringing like wind chimes in a hurricane. I can adapt to any frequency. Maya raised an eyebrow. Sonic weapon? Oh, honey, that's not what I'm worried about with you. She reached into her other pocket and withdrew what appeared to be a simple glass marble. She held it up to catch the arena's lighting, and the sphere began to glow with an inner radiance. You see, crystalline beings like yourself have one major vulnerability. You process information through harmonic resonance patterns, right? Your entire consciousness exists as standing waves within your crystal matrix. Vex'thor's form began to solidify, recognizing the threat. What are you suggesting? Maya smiled and gave the marble a gentle underhand toss. It arced through the air and landed with a soft tink against Vex'thor's crystalline surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the marble began to pulse with a soft, steady rhythm. "I'm not suggesting anything," Maya said. "I'm demonstrating. That little marble contains a quantum resonator programmed with a very specific pattern. The same pattern your species uses for deep meditation. The kind that puts you into a trance state for weeks at a time." Vex'thor's eyes widened in horror as he felt his consciousness beginning to drift. His form started to become translucent, his thoughts scattering like light through a prism. "Sleep tight," Maya said gently as the crystalline warrior faded into peaceful unconsciousness. "3 down," she announced to the arena. And we're not even at the intermission yet. The crowd was no longer making any sound at all. 10,000 beings from across the galaxy sat in stunned silence, watching a single human systematically dismantle champions who had never known defeat. The 2 remaining competitors besides Zephyr were Korrath, an energy-based life form that existed as pure living plasma, and Nethys, a cybernetic warrior whose body was more machine than organic matter. Korrath spoke first, his voice crackling with electrical discharge. "Impressive, human, but I am not bound by physical form. Your tricks will not work on pure energy." "Tricks?" Maya looked genuinely offended. "Sir, I'll have you know that everything I've done so far has been completely legitimate tactical analysis combined with basic scientific principles. There's not a single trick in the bunch." She pulled out her phone again and started tapping on the screen. "For instance, did you know that energy beings like yourself are basically just very complex electromagnetic fields?" Korrath's form flickered with agitation. "Your point?" "Well," Maya said, still focused on her phone, "electromagnetic fields can be disrupted by other electromagnetic fields, especially ones that are precisely tuned to create destructive interference patterns." She held up her phone, and the screen was displaying what looked like a simple app with a single button labeled Play. "What is that?" Korrath demanded. "Oh, just a little something I coded during the hyperspace trip here. Turns out your species broadcasts a very distinctive electromagnetic signature, kind of like a fingerprint, but for energy beings. Once you know the pattern, it's pretty easy to generate the exact opposite waveform." Maya's thumb hovered over the play button. "The technical term is destructive interference, but I like to call it the off switch." Korrath tried to flee, his plasma form streaking toward the arena's exit, but Maya had already pressed a button. A barely audible tone emerged from her phone speakers, and Korrath's energy form began to destabilize. His coherent plasma field scattered into random electrical discharges before finally dissipating entirely. "For down," Maya said, closing the app. "You know, I'm starting to feel bad about this. It's like bringing a calculator to a math competition." Nethys had been observing everything with the cold, analytical precision of her cybernetic enhancements. When she spoke, her voice was a mixture of organic vocal cords and digital processing. "You have studied us," she stated. "This was planned." Maya tilted her head appreciatively. "Finally, someone who gets it. Yes, I studied you. All of you. Did you really think humans would enter a competition like this without doing our homework?" "But how?" Nethys asked. "The participant list was sealed until arrival." "Sealed from whom?" Maya laughed. "Look, no offense, but galaxy-wide databases aren't exactly Fort Knox-level security. A decent hacker with some free time can access pretty much anything. And humans have been hacking systems since we figured out how to bang rocks together." Nethys' cybernetic implants began glowing as she processed this information. "You infiltrated our records." "Infiltrated is such an ugly word. I prefer conducted thorough background research. Your combat records, tactical preferences, physiological data, psychological profiles. It's all publicly available if you know where to look." Maya gestured around the arena. "Did you really think I just happen to have the exact tools needed to counter each of your specific abilities? This isn't luck or intuition. This is preparation meeting opportunity." "Then you know my capabilities as well," Nethys said, her weapon systems beginning to emerge from concealed ports in her cybernetic frame. "Oh, absolutely," Maya nodded. "Cybernetic nervous system with quantum processing cores, adaptive combat algorithms. weapon systems that can reconfigure based on threat assessment. You're basically a one-woman army. Nethys' weapons finished deploying, an impressive array of energy cannons, projectile launchers, and melee implements that would have been overwhelming to face in conventional combat. And yet you seem unconcerned, Nethys observed. Maya shrugged. That's because you have the same fundamental flaw as every other cybernetic organism in the galaxy. You're still running on software. She pulled out what looked like a simple USB drive. And software, Maya said with a grin that was equal parts cheerful and terrifying, can be updated. Before Nethys could react, Maya tossed the drive through the air. It struck the cybernetic warrior's chest and somehow, impossibly, interfaced directly with her systems. Nethys froze as alien code flooded through her neural networks. Her weapon systems powered down, her combat algorithms crashed, and her enhanced reflexes ground to a halt. "What did you do to me?" she managed to ask, her voice now purely organic without digital enhancement. "Gave you a firmware update," Maya said brightly. "Nothing harmful. Just a little patch that makes you prioritize self-preservation over combat effectiveness. You'll thank me later when you're not compulsively trying to fight everything that moves." Nethys looked down at her now dormant weapon systems, then back at Maya. "5 down," she said quietly, acknowledging her defeat. "5 down," Maya confirmed. And then there was one, Zephyr, the Apex Warlord, stood alone at the center of the arena. His biometallic armor was flickering and failing without, its energy cores revealing the surprisingly ordinary organic form beneath. But his eyes still burned with the fierce pride of a being who had conquered star systems. "Impressive," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the silent arena. "You have defeated champions who have never known defeat. But I am not like them, human. I am Zephyr. I am the storm that breaks upon worlds. I am the darkness between stars." Maya walked slowly toward him, her hands still casually in her pockets. "You know, I was wondering when you get around to the dramatic villain speech. Most bad guys lead with that." "Mock me if you wish," Zephyr said, raising his clawed hands in a combat stance. "But I will not fall to your technological tricks. I am a warrior born. I need no weapons, no armor, no enhancements. I will tear you apart with my bare hands." Maya stopped about 10 feet away from him and considered this statement. You know what? That's actually refreshing. Everyone else was so dependent on their gadgets and special abilities. It'll be nice to have a straightforward fight for once. She pulled her hands out of her pockets and cracked her knuckles. "All right, big guy, you want to do this the old-fashioned way? Let's dance." Zephyr charged forward with a roar that echoed off the arena walls. His claws extended, reaching for Maya's throat with lethal precision and overwhelming strength. Maya stepped to the side. That was it. One simple sidestep. Perfectly timed, minimal effort. Zephyr's momentum carried him past her, and as he stumbled trying to redirect his attack, Maya did something that no one in the arena expected. She reached out and gently tapped him on the shoulder. The Apex Warlord, terror of 14 star systems, conqueror of the Martian defense grid, the being whose very name struck fear into hearts of civilizations, stumbled and fell flat on his face. The arena was so quiet you could have heard a pin drop in vacuum. Maya looked down at the fallen warlord and shook her head sadly. "You know, for someone who calls himself the Apex Warlord, you have terrible balance." Zephyr pushed himself up on his elbows, his face a mass of confusion and rage. "What did you do to me?" "Nothing," Maya said, settling into a comfortable crouch beside him. "That's kind of the point. See, while everyone else was focused on your reputation and your conquests and your scary armor, I was paying attention to the basics." She gestured at his still prone form. "You've been wearing that biometallic armor for so long that your natural sense of balance has completely atrophied. Your muscle memory is calibrated for a completely different weight distribution and center of gravity. Without the armor's assistance systems, you're basically learning to walk again." Zephyr tried to stand, but his movements were clumsy and uncoordinated. Every motion was calibrated for a body that no longer existed. "This is impossible," he growled. "I trained for centuries before I ever donned the armor." "Sure, but that was centuries ago. Maya pointed out reasonably. Muscle memory fades, reflexes change, bodies adapt. You became dependent on technology just like everyone else. You just didn't realize it. She stood up and dusted off her knees. The sad thing is, underneath all that tech, you probably were a pretty decent fighter once upon a time. But you got lazy, started believing your own hype, forgot that real strength comes from within, not from fancy gear. Zephyr made one more attempt to attack, lunging toward Maya from his position on the ground. She simply stepped backward, letting his momentum carry him face first into the arena floor again. And that, Maya said, addressing the stunned crowd, is why humans don't need to conquer star systems to prove we're dangerous. We just need to pay attention. The simulation's tactical superiority protocols finally activated, recognizing that Maya had achieved complete dominance over all other competitors. Golden light began to surround her as the arena acknowledged its new champion. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted sentient beings. The announcer finally found his voice, though it cracked with emotion. We have a winner. Maya Chen of the Soul System is the new Nexus Prime champion. The crowd exploded into thunderous applause, but Maya was already checking her phone again. Perfect timing. She announced to no one in particular. Pizza should be here in about 15 minutes. Just enough time to collect my prize money and get home. She looked around at the defeated champions, most of whom were still unconscious or disabled by her various countermeasures. Thanks for the warm-up, everyone, she called out cheerfully. Same time next year? As Maya walked toward the exit, leaving behind an arena full of the galaxy's most feared warriors, she paused and looked back over her shoulder. Oh, and Zephyr, she said to the still struggling former warlord, next time you want to conquer a human world, maybe try asking nicely first. We're actually pretty reasonable when people aren't trying to kill us. She waved goodbye and strolled out of the arena, already thinking about what toppings she'd ordered on her pizza. Behind her, 10,000 spectators and 9 defeated champions tried to process what they had just witnessed. The galaxy's understanding of human capabilities had just been fundamentally altered by one girl with a smartphone and a really good research methodology. And somewhere in the depths of space, other species were quietly removing Earth from their invasion target lists. Some fights, after all, just weren't worth picking.